frequently asked questions on test updates, test changes, and you can access all that here as things continue to change. So whatever is in this presentation includes previous before COVID-19, and also some information about changes that are happening now. And then if you go to this website, you'll be able to find changes that are currently happening because they could change at any time. So a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Kevin, and you can email me after this presentation at this email here. But I just want to emphasize that I am a student too. I am a third year undergraduate at UCSD. I am pre-med, so I have more information about the MCAT mainly, but I'll be talking about everything, just a general overview. And there are different ways to get Kaplan resources, and right here you have this code if you want to start now. It's just Club 10, and you can get 10% off any of our Kaplan courses. Everything is online right now, but you can get more information on that at captest.com or call 1-800-CAPTEST. And one of the things that's really cool about Kaplan is we do partnerships with club organizations. And if you're interested, like I said, you can feel free to reach out to me, and you will get monthly partnership emails with free events, resources, and news as well. And we do offer a variety of different resources depending on the kind of club you are. So that Club 10 code is actually not the only way to get free resources. We have another campaign right now where we say support healthcare workers and we'll support your studies. Right now, that is, if you download a free study guide, we'll actually donate $1 for each download to the UN's Foundation COVID-19 for COVID-19 response. So each person that downloads will donate $1 to that fund. And this is what the page will look like. And so you can download any of the study guides here. And you can go to the link above or just scan this QR code if you're interested in doing that. It only takes about 5 minutes. They just ask for your name, email address, and what test you will be, or what study guide you wanted to download. And you can download multiple ones, but for each user, it'll just be $1 per download. And to get into that, so to begin with, we'll just be talking about the MCAT. So this is the typical medical school admissions timeline. And to begin with, this is simply just a general guideline that a lot of people like to use, but it always depends on you as a person. If you have a gap year, if you have anything going on and you want to prepare ahead, this is what a general timeline will look like. So you can see when people are recommended to take the MCAT, but again, you can even take the MCAT during your application. So another thing to point out is that when the AMC does open their application, usually beginning in May, and then we do recommend that you submit it either at the beginning of June when that opens or towards the end, just because having your application read first will allow admissions officers to see your application prior to anyone else's, and that'll give you a higher chance of getting in. Same thing with secondary applications, they are rolling. And so what that essentially means is that when schools review, yours will be first. And so they'll offer you admission for an interview first before anyone else. And as those spots fill up, you'll have a less chance or likelihood of getting an interview as well. Another thing is that I wanted to bring up is letters of recommendation, and this applies to any application, not just MCAT or any test, even with like DAT, OAT, to make sure that you get those in. So the MCAT or the AMC requires typically 3 to 6 letters of rec, 2, I believe, from professors or from your science that taught you. And it's important to get these as soon as possible, just because the more time that you give your professor to write that, the better quality the letter of recommendation, and also they'll have the time to sort of talk to you about what you could possibly want to include or talk about in that letter of recommendation. So the sooner that you get those out of the way, the higher chance that you have of getting a better letter of rec that will stand out from anyone else. So again, remember, this is just a general guideline that doesn't really apply to everyone's situation, but it's one that you can use to sort of help and plan out the structure of how you want to plan out your application. So next is just a few MCAT basics, and this is pre-COVID. So just to start off, everything is outlined here, so I don't want to go into too much detail for each test, but uh, it is a computer-based test, and it is completely multiple choice. And you are allowed to take the MCAT up to 7 times in your life, but obviously it's better to take it the least amount of times as possible, especially with it being $315 about to take it each time. So the seating time is about 7.5 hours. It includes all of these different sections, and your score will be broken down into 5 different scores, one for each section, and a general over. The last score would be the overall score. And so your total possible score, as many people know, will be a 528. And if you sort of to keep that in mind, the UCSD School of Medicine, their average MCAT score for the 2019 entering class was a 516, I believe, which is the 93rd percentile. But again, that is just an average, so it's taken from above and below that score as well. So the MCAT is one of the longest tests, so it does require not only knowledge, but also stamina to take it and understanding how the test works. So we'll go into details about like courses and what we offer through Kaplan later. So this is actually how they have changed it according to COVID and how to best practice like health and safety, but also offer the test. So this is for exams that will be held May 29th to September 28th. And as you can see, the time did change from 7.5 hours to 5 hours and 45 minutes with a 10-minute optional break. And this just allows the least amount of interaction between people and less seating time, and also offering students the availability to take it, which because they have 3 times in one day now. And they will still, you will still be tested on all the same material and expected to know all the same course, the same material. And it'll still be the same score breakdown. You'll still receive the same 5 scores. It's just that the tests, there'll be less questions and there will be less time given for those sections. The exams will be administered 3 times a day with standard starting times depending on each test center. It'll usually be around 6:30 a.m., 12:15 p.m., and 6 p.m. And they did that just to maximize the amount of students that could take it with COVID. And so next, this is the dental school admissions timeline. And something you'll see is that typically all of these follow almost the same exact timeline. And this is for students who want to take the DAT. So official DAT scores will be available 3 to 4 weeks after the test date, but it will take 4 to 6 weeks to be verified. And that's almost with any application as well. And like the MCAT, many people do take a gap year. So when looking at these admissions timelines, I want you all to consider that as well, because it does, like I said, it doesn't apply to everyone. For interviews, there are 2 tips that we recommend is to try to plan it from your interest of least to most. And that's just sort of to give you practice from for your interviews. So if the school you're most interested in is your last one, you'll have all the practice interviews prior to that before. And here are the DAT breakdown. And for more information, you can visit this link down here as well. But you can see that it's pretty straightforward. And So the DAT and the OAT are actually offered at the Prometric testing centers. And I looked up just to see what changes they might be making. And I believe there's not too much currently being made because a lot of test centers are still closed. A few are opening now. So if you want to see more about testing during this time period, during this pandemic, you would have to check the Prometric testing centers and which are open and which are not. So the score range for the DAT ranges from a 1 to a 30, and it is also computer-based test valid depending on the school. It'll last for 3 to 5 years, again, depending on the school. And the application deadlines are typically starting in November. After completing the test, there are 8 standard test scores on a scale of 1 to 30. And the first 6 scores come directly from the test, depending on each section. So the remaining 2 scores are summaries of the previous 6, and the average is the average of 5 scores, which is quantitative reasoning, reading comprehension, biology, general chem, and OChem. And something else about this is that there are no penalties for this exam, so you can guess away. But the average score is a 17, and a 19 is the average for students getting into dental schools. So if you want to aim for the 90th percentile, that'll be around a 21. And next up is optometry. And here is the timeline for that. And you can see that this one's a little different. But admissions are rolling as well compared to similar to the MCAT interviews and secondary applications. So in lighter blue will just be the ideal way to prepare for the application, but it is possible to go if you follow the dark blue. But again, this doesn't apply to everyone. And to go through the basics again, for the OAT, similar to the DAT, they are Prometric, based on the Prometric testing centers. So you'd have to check for more information on which centers are open. But the score range for the OAT is from 200 to 400, but the average test taker score is 300, and a 320 and above for those going to optometry schools. And if you want to aim for the 90th percentile, depending on the year, obviously that'll just be a 350. So the test is overall 4 hours. So with 4 sections, you would have to make sure that you know your content and also be able to keep up with the time so you don't fall behind and not answer, because you don't have a lot of time for these questions compared to other tests. And again, this is all based on correct answers and not just, you won't get penalized for any wrong answers. Next up is pharmacy school admissions. Again, you can see the ideal in light blue and then the possible in dark blue. And again, you can see the rolling admissions as well. So be sure to apply or get those in as early as possible. And here is the breakdown for the PCAT. And again, it's very straightforward, 4+ hours. And we can cover you as the official provider of PCAT Prep because we are exclusively endorsed by the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy. So we work with the test maker to ensure that all of our prep materials that we're providing are exactly what you need to succeed on your testing day. Something about the PCAT is that it has very limited dates. So when you plan to take it is important, and make sure you plan ahead because it is offered in July, September, and January with limited seating in October and November as well. Your PCAT score is valid for 3 to 5 years, depending on the school that is accepting it. But there's a lot of subject matter to cover as well. So it pretty much encompasses everything you've learned in college as far as science and math. So chemistry, bio, calculus, etc. but it's going to test other things as well, such as time management and critical thinking. The score range is 200 to 600, with the median score being 400, and the 90th percentile for the PCAT being around a 430. So some things for the adjustments that they made for COVID are that some of the Pearson VUE testing centers, which is where the PCAT takes place, are temporarily closed. But registration did open for the July, September, and January exams on May 4th. And so if you are planning on taking it in July, the last date to register for that will be the end of May, I believe. And you can still register for that past that deadline. You'll just be paying a late fee as well. And so some of the Pearson VUE centers will be opening up for testing, but there are certain things like restrictions. So if you exhibit symptoms, then you'll be asked to reschedule and everything. But you must bring and wear your own face mask while you're testing as well. And any surgical or cloth mask as well, as long as it fully covers your nose and mouth at the testing center, because anyone without a face mask will actually be denied testing services at that date. And so the next one would be just general grad school admissions. So this would be tests regarding like the GRE and the GMAT if you want to go to just any grad school that accepts that. The GMAT is typically for MBA, and then the GRE can apply for both the MBA and some law schools, depending. So this schedule applies for the fall cycle, which is what most students do apply for. But obviously you can adjust it for any other cycle. But most applications are due in the late fall. Not all graduate programs have an interview process either. So just keep that in mind. And so to go into more detail about the GRE. So it is offered daily at prometric testing centers such as the OAT and DAT, and it's valid for 5 years. So it gives you time to take a gap year to sort of put your application together and even work for a couple of years before you apply. It is computer-based and multi-stage, and it adapts section by section based on your performance on previous quantitative or verbal sections. So we do recommend that students sign up for the GRE 1 to 2 months in advance, because although it is offered daily, the seats do fill up really fast. So you need to plan ahead in order to secure a seat. Applications for each school vary, generally from December 1st to March 31st. So be sure to check if you are interested in a school to check when their application deadline is so that you can get that in before then. And so the GRE with COVID-19 changes are actually, they offer it at an at-home option, which is identical to what you would be taking, except it's at home, but it's the same format and the same content. It is taken on your own computer at home with proctoring softwares, so that obviously to prevent cheating. And it'll be available around the clock every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday up until June 30th at this point. And you can make an appointment as early as 24 hours before you register. So you have that timeline to register for the exam if you want to do that at-home option. And so next one is the GMAT. So very similar. A lot of people sort of sometimes get the GRE and GMAT mixed up. But again, it is offered daily at Pearson VUE testing centers and valid for 5 years. So you can take it when you're an undergrad if you want, and then you still have that time to even take a gap year as well, depending on when you take the exam. It is scored from 200 to 800. And if there's a business school near you, again, obviously just look up the average score and see if you could fall into that range depending on that. And even if you fall a little bit below, that shouldn't discourage you from applying. There are a lot of other factors that go into your application. So it is also a computer adapted test, so it adapts question by question based on your performance in all the previous questions. And you can select the order in which you want to take the sections. So it depends on um, you and like whatever you want to get out of the way first. Um, and then we offer full-length practice tests, which allow you to practice in the same order that you'll use on test day. So if you want to take it in a certain way and you like that structure, we do have tests for that. The deadlines vary from school to school and program to program, so be sure to check in depending on the school and look into uh, what they do look for. And if you do want to register for the GMAT or anything, the links are down here, and there's more information about, they just started the online GMAT as well, which similar to the GRE, it will be same in content and structure, but there are a few restrictions for that, so you can find out more at the link below. And lastly is our law school admissions timeline. So this applies to the fall cycle, which again is what most people will be applying for. But this is just an overview, so be sure to check in depending on the law school to determine when your deadlines need to be. So the LSAC actually announced the expansion to 9 testing dates for the 2019-2020 testing year in January, March, April, June, July, September, October, and November. And the typical admission cycle does work on a rolling admissions model. So they will be reviewed again in order at which they are received. So be sure to get that in as soon as possible. And the September and October dates are typically the most popular because they occur right before the application cycle. So keep that in mind if you want to take those at that time. And with so many test dates, you have a lot of options to determine when you're ready. So there aren't any restrictions nearly. There are some changes to the LSAT, but I believe a lot of them are almost the same as what they offer because they actually just went digital this past year. And so in June, they had the final paper and pencil exam for everyone. And then in July, they had a transition exam. So most of the, half the test takers were assigned to paper and pencil and half were digital exams. And then in September of 2019, they administered the first fully digital exam. And you can get more information about that at lsac.org on what was changed and how the testing strategy is. And so here is just a general overview for the LSAT. And the LSAT, compared to the other tests, is actually not a content-based test. It is skills-based. So you don't need to know algebra or political science, but you do need to use expected reason and logic in many formats. And so what you use in law school are these skills, which is why it's so important to have this LSAT score, a high LSAT score. And most people fear the logic games portion of the LSAT, but most of our students actually do say that once they start practicing, it becomes more fun along the way. And the most important section though is logical reasoning because there are 2 sections of it, and so it's counting for half of your score. And the section that is considered the hardest after the official test is the reading comprehension because there are a lot of dense readings and it requires a lot of reasoning and also it's very time consuming. Each of the sections of the LSAT is only 35 minutes long, so pacing is paramount to your success. You have to ensure that you have the right stamina and can get through each section as quickly as possible. And the writing sample is unscored, but it is mandatory because a copy of it is submitted to all law schools to which you apply, and is most commonly used as a comparison tool to validate that you wrote your personal statement with the application. You'll get 3 separate scores on the LSAT. uh, and we'll just be looking at the scaled score, which is the official score of the exam. It is a scale from 120 to 180, and there's no guessing penalty on the LSAT, meaning you can't lose points. And the most competitive schools, which are the top 10, look for scores around the 95th percentile, which is a 167. And then a 151 would be a 50th percentile score. And so no matter how many times you take the LSAT, all law schools will see all your attempts and all your scores, so keep that in mind. Your highest score is what will be used by the law school that accepts you, but you should still aim to take it once, preferably. Each score is good for 5 years. So if you aren't sure about law school or if you want to take some time before then, you do have that score for 5 years and you will be able to use it then. And again, there is no limit on the amount of times to take the LSAT, but it's preferred that you do take it once. So applications are on a rolling basis starting in September. And if you want more information about the LSAT and its options, go ahead and visit the lsac.org/LSAT. And finally, actually, so COVID-19 changes for the LSAT. They have this thing called LSAT Flex, which started on May 18th. For anyone who was registered for the LSAT previously, will have this option to do LSAT Flex, but if not, you'll be given sort of like a coupon to take it at another testing date when things do return back to normal for health and safety reasons. And depending on how the COVID-19 pandemic evolves, they may administer additional LSAT Flex exams, but right now they only have until for those who are registered for June 8th. So now that we went over all of the exams that we have offered for course materials, I'll be going into more detail about why Kaplan. So these are the 4 options that Kaplan typically offers. Obviously, in-person right now is not being offered. Everything that was in person, if you were registered, is moved to live online. And so just an overview for each of these is live online, in-person, self-guided, and one-on-one tutoring. It's basically straightforward. All of us obviously are now almost used to live online. But compared to asynchronous, this will be synchronous because you'll be required to attend at that certain time, that whatever you're registered to. But we do also offer just online courses, which would be asynchronous at your own pace, which is the self-guided. And you could do that at your own time, on your own pace, as fast as you want or as slow as you want. And the one-on-one tutoring is actually the same thing as a full in-person or live online course, but in addition to those, you get one-on-one tutoring on top of that, just to give you more practice and more advice from your tutor. And so we do have 8 decades of raising scores, so we've been in this industry for quite some time. And our courses include expert instructors, personalized study plans, hundreds of hours of live instruction, realistic online sources, full-length practice exams, and much more. And so our instructors are actually, for MCAT, at least I know that for sure. I believe it's just all Kaplan instructors though. For each test that they are teaching, they're required to score at least in the 90th percentile and above. So you'll know that you are getting instructors that do understand the material, understand the test, and know how it works. So we do offer only the best of the best, essentially. And so everything, like I said, that was live or in person has now moved online, but that is something that we're used to because any of our instructors and teachers are trained to teach online courses as well. So you're going to get the same type of teaching online that you would get in person because your instructor will do the best that they can to teach you in the same way, except in the comfort of your own home. And next slide. So we do have supplemental content. So all of this is included with your course that you do choose to take with Kaplan. And so the channel is available for most exams, which is what this is. It's typically, it's only the MCAT, LSAT, and GRE and GMAT at the moment. And it's just a supplemental resource that we offer for our students. There are live content reviews streamed weekly, sort of like a TV guide, if you like to think of it that way. And then there's also archive videos on the side if you missed a video. This presents the opportunity to preview a lot of the Kaplan instructors. If you, let's say, you don't necessarily enjoy your own, you have different perspectives on topics that might be giving you a problem. If you can't learn it the way that your instructor is teaching, there are a lot of other instructors on here as well. And so the channel is actually not the best part because there is another thing we offer called QBank, which is offered on your own phone, so you can take it anywhere you go. So it is more than just a flashcard app because it's an entire prep system in your pocket. There are thousands of questions, customizable quizzes, specific categories and topics, and visual explanations for all answers. And so there's also a detailed performance chart to track your progress so you can prep in the most efficient ways to see what you might need to work on, what you have already mastered and everything like that. And so all of this does come included with the Kaplan course. And finally, the last thing that we do offer is our higher score guaranteed or your money back. So this just ensures that you are happy with your score and that you did score higher than originally, because we want to know that we believe in you. We are confident in your success, that if your score doesn't improve, we'll either give your money back or let you retake the class for free. And you can get more eligibility requirements and information at kaptest.com/HSG. And to my knowledge, we are the only company that guarantees students a higher score. That's just because we are confident in you and as you test. And finally, to end, if you are interested in becoming an SBA, this is just a short video. I don't need to play it just because it just talks about different opportunities, but it's just an overview. So if you want to sort of educate your peers about all of these tests and help them along their career journey, as well as helping yourself on your own career journey, this is just a great opportunity to do that. You get to meet new people, talk to clubs, work with the Kaplan Center that we do have on campus, and they're great help. So this is just something, if you're interested, you can go to kaptest.com/SBA. And so that is all I have for you today. Sorry it was a little long, but if you have any questions or would like to reach out, you can email me at that email. You can message me on Instagram, anything like that. And so if there's any questions or concerns about any of the material I covered, you can always go to, like I said, that link at the beginning. You can go to kaptest.com, call our number at 1-800-CAPTEST. Or even if you have questions later on when our campus does reopen, the Kaplan Center should reopen as well. And Chantel Isaacs, she works in there at the front desk, and she will help you along with any questions that you have. They're super nice. They're open typically 9 to 6 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'd love to answer. So based on your presentation, the LSAT doesn't require any prior knowledge. To my knowledge, I don't believe it requires any, like I said, content-based knowledge. It doesn't mean that you can't get better at doing all of these logic or reasoning problems as well, though. So the practice exams will allow you to sort of get used to understanding how these logic questions are phrased and how they work, so that you can sort of tackle them in a faster pace, because like the presentation showed, the breakdown is only about 35 minutes per section. So as you practice more, you'll get used to all of these questions and it'll be easier as you do it. Does anyone else have any other questions? So I kn Are there any financial aid packages for UCSD students? So there are actually financial aid packages for students, not just UCSD students. If you do qualify for that, you can go ahead and go to our captest.com for more information on that as well. But there are just requirements, eligibility requirements based on that. So if you fill out that form, you can get up to $6,000 off, I believe. I'm not exactly sure about the price actually, but you do get quite a bit. I believe it's just 60%, not 6,000, 60% off of the Kaplan course, based on your application that you do fill out. And if you don't qualify, there are other offerings, like if you do partnerships with your club and organization, we do offer discounts, and also that general Club 10 discount if you want to get 10% off of any Kaplan course as well. Any other questions? What is my spirit fruit? Um, I mean, I don't know if it would be my spirit fruit, but I like how I believe it was SK that said lychee. Um, I'll just go with that for now, just because it is. I said in the chat earlier that it has a hard shell, so you do have to peel it in order to get the sweet surprise that's inside. And I feel like that could be similar to me because people say that I am pretty closed off, or at least I believe that I am, I guess. Um, I tend to be very shy and closed off until you meet me, then I'll probably be a lot more open to you once we get past that hard shell. And lychee does taste good as well. Um, how did I become a student brand ambassador for Kaplan? So I actually was a